Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be starting my series on audio equipment and soundboards. This video is going to be a quick overview of the soundboards that I recommend, why I recommend them, and which ones might have features you're looking for, and if you just want to get started looking for the best bang for buck budget board, I'll show you those options as well. When thinking about a soundboard, it's important to consider its feature set. So if you're going to buy a soundboard that has, one or two XLR inputs, no FX send or aux send output, you're going to severely limit yourself to the features that you can utilize with the board. If you're looking to use the same microphone for Discord and your stream and mix everything together, listen to it all in real time, you're going to need a soundboard that has the proper features. There's a temptation to just buy a Mackie because it's a Mackie or a Yamaha because it's a Yamaha and not realize that the compression, the EQ, the sends on the board will not function the same between brands, boards themselves. I would recommend that you do your research and figure out what your use case is. My suggestions and the reasons I'm picking these boards, number one, the Yamaha boards that I've tested have all had, the compression is lacking. The compressors tend to only act as a limiter, where it only kicks in if you're really loud. And truly what you'd want for a compressor on stream is to have your voice be evened out so that softer things are raised up and louder things are brought down. So the compressor on the Yamaha boards that I've used, even the bigger, more expensive boards, they don't act the way they do, say, for instance, in the Behringer board. So I feel like compression is one of the major assets and features of getting a soundboard. Being able to get a microphone compressed for your live stream, hearing what the compression sounds like can help you balance room noise, white noise, all kinds of issues, and make your voice sound better. If I take the compression off on my microphone here, you can tell that there's a pretty big difference in the way that my mic sounds, and then if I get farther away from the mic, how much the volume drops. And just turning the compression back up like this, you can see that I sound much more clear even though I didn't move at all. So compression can really help with your production, and I think the Behringer soundboards, the compressors, are one of the best features that they offer on their boards. Bang for buck, I think Behringer's the way to go. They're not perfect boards, but in this case there is no perfect board. As far as features, though, I'd say the Behringer boards offer all the features across the board that you're looking for to make your stream work and be able to expand your audio mix and production on your stream. So, what boards do I recommend? So the first board we're going to look at here is the Behringer QX 1002 USB. So if you're going to get a soundboard, there's a reason I would start with this board at a bare minimum. It has what I would call the sweet spot for the feature set minimum that you're looking for a streamer. So when picking a soundboard, I like to make sure it has a few things. Number one, like I said, compression. That's a really important one. Number two, that it has a send, an FX or an aux send, preferably an aux send, but you can sacrifice the FX channel by using an FX send. And an FX send can then act as an aux send. Now the reason this is important is this is the feature that will allow you to separate your microphone out from the final mix, send it to a separate sound card for Discord and in-game voice chat. So you can use one microphone that will then send the microphone to a separate output for Discord. You cannot use the soundboard's final mix in Discord and also use it to hear other people because they'll hear themselves. They'll hear your game sound. They'll hear your computer's audio. You don't want to do that. You just want your microphone isolated and sent to Discord as a separate input from the soundboard. But then in OBS, you get to send the entire soundboard over and have the entire mix. Discord, music, game sound, alerts. And so that's where the final necessary feature comes in. You'd want 4 stereo inputs. This is extremely important. If you skip this feature set on the soundboard, let's say you go with the soundboard that only has 2 stereo inputs, you're going to need to buy extra equipment to then expand the mixer's capability to have more things to mix. Now, I'll talk about this in a future video. There is a really good device that will allow you to send a new mix, a separate mix. It's a small mixer where you can send 4 stereo mixes into one channel on the soundboard, and then you'd have to control the volume on a separate device. But you can expand. But really, ideally, what you'd want is 4 stereo inputs at least to get you started, or more. There are ways to expand the stereo inputs if you don't have 4 stereo. You're not out of luck. But if you're investing the money initially in the board, compression, FX or aux send, and stereo inputs, 4 of them. The rest of the money that you're going to need to invest can go into your microphone and can go into ground loop isolators and good cables and adapters to make all of this work. The good news is, once you have those cables, sound cards, adapters, microphone, you can upgrade the soundboard in the future and just kind of move all of that over to the new soundboard. But this seems like a great starting board. Now, there's a caveat here. I haven't used this soundboard. I'm looking at it and thinking this has all the features that I would want if I were to suggest somebody to get a soundboard. So, start with the QX1002 USB. This is a great board to go with if you're a starter. And if there's any problems with this board, if anybody has this board and there's some kind of thing that I don't know about it, please leave it in the comments and let me know below. And I will delete this video and make a new one. Okay, Behringer Q1202 USB. This is the next board on the list. It has 4 XLR inputs. I would go with this one. It has all the same features of the other board, except it has 4 XLR inputs, which theoretically you could use 2 of them together to add another stereo channel if you wanted to have a stereo channel with compression on it. So this one, the basic difference is that all the features outside of that are the same, except for on this one you actually lose the effects options. If you wanted to be able to have some reverb or voice modulation or some kind of effects on your stream, you'd have to sacrifice the Discord talkback, unplug the cable, so that you could use the FX on the other board. This one doesn't have any actual FX. The FX itself, the FX send, is perfect for Discord though, so you're not going to have any issues there. These are all USB boards. Oh wait, let's go back. Yeah, this one's USB. This one's USB. These are all USB boards. So the difference here is, $20 or so between these 2 boards. So if you need extra microphones, if you know you're going to have like 3 guests in a local spot, or you're going to be doing some kind of extra microphones, miking up a guitar amp or drums or something for your stream, and 4 mics is enough, this is the way to go. So the next one on the list is the Behringer QX1202 USB. So the difference between the QX1202 and the Q1202 is you're going to get a line level button on the 4 stereo inputs. This will give you a pretty massive increase in volume if you have a low input level on one of your stereo outputs. Let's say, for instance, you've got an HDMI audio extractor and it's giving you kind of a quiet volume and you can't turn the gain up anymore on the console. You'll be able to push this small little button to increase it by, a few decibels or so. This also has a low cut button for the microphones so that you can just cut out anything under 80 hertz. Not that you would necessarily need to do that. And it has the actual effects chain so that you can add effects to it. But it still only has the FX send. It does not have an aux send to separate for your voice in Discord. So you'd have to sacrifice that if you're going to use the Discord talkback feature on this. Now you could unplug that cable from the FX send port and use the FX for something if you needed to, if you're playing music and you wanted a little reverb on your voice or singing or something. So you just have to unplug the cable to be able to start using the FX built into the board. Other than that, it's basically the same. It's got 4 stereo inputs and it's got 4 microphones. The next board we're going to look at, the Behringer QX 1222 USB. Now this is where we start getting into like a little bit bigger territory. These are pretty big boards. You're going to need a pretty dedicated space for any of these boards, but this is where the footprint starts to get quite a bit bigger. The nice thing here is that you get 4 XLR inputs, and then 2 of the stereo inputs also include XLR. So you still only have 4 stereo inputs. You also get 2 with XLR, so you can choose between extra XLR mics if that's necessary and stereo inputs. You've also got an aux return. You got 2 aux returns, which is going to give you the ability to add other little inputs and mixers and stuff. You're not going to be able to necessarily control the volume directly on the board of those. You're going to have to control them externally. But it is possible to expand this board, maybe even daisy chain other smaller boards. If you upgrade from a smaller board, you could kind of hook them up together. It has a USB adapter right here, which is nice just if you want to be able to have some kind of 5-volt power coming out of the board. And you've got the compressor on the first 4 channels here that don't have the stereo inputs. You've got faders, which is really nice. And the first big expansion that you're actually getting out of this is the aux send is separate from the FX send, which means the effects on this board you're going to be able to use, and you're going to be able to keep the Discord talkback output. You can plug in a cable to send your Discord audio, your talkback voice, and control the volume with the aux send knob of just your voice to Discord, and still have an FX chain to be able to use that kind of stuff. It's also got this EQ here, which will let you do some sweetening of the final audio, which can be nice. It's got a USB return track, which unfortunately is not something that gets pulled into the final mix, but this is the only Behringer soundboard that has 2-way, where the audio is sent both to the computer and back to the board. All the other boards do not have a return channel, and if there's a button to listen to the return, it stops the output of the board. So you can't listen to the soundboard as a sound card and use it as a microphone input at the same time. This board is the only one that I'm aware of that allows 2-way talk, so that you can send the audio to OBS and listen to something in return. But this return channel is not mixed into the final mix, so it will not go back into OBS. You cannot use it for your alerts. You can't use it for music on your stream, but you can use it for music for you that only you can hear. This is a channel that only you can hear through the headphones. That said, this is not a feature I think any streamer needs. No, I'd rather actually have a submix to do that, where you could separate it out and maybe use the submix, which we're going to get into other boards here in a moment. But you got the FX, and the Mon send would be your talkback. The next board I would recommend is the 1622. Now, the 1622 is a really, really great board. Just barely lacking in features for the top end here. And the price difference between this board and the next board that I'm going to show you is so minimal. A lot of times I've actually seen the next board I'm going to show you be less expensive than this board. It really depends. You check your prices. They move around all the time. It's hard to keep track of where the prices are at. But again, you got 4 XLR inputs. You've got the aux send, and the EQ is expanded on this board slightly. You've actually got the ability here to... let's just go back. You've actually got the ability here to dial in the mid-range, boost, or cut. That's this lighter blue knob. You can point the EQ towards an area of this the EQ, and boost or cut that, which is kind of nice for your voice. If you've got a fan noise in your room that's hitting around 1,000, 2,000 frequency, you can aim this knob around that and cut it with a knob above it. So it's very nice. It's a little bit of a nice feature to have. But the biggest thing that this board gives you above all the others is a submix. These two faders here are a secondary mix, which means you can assign any one of these channels to go to the main, this and the sub, and or. So you can choose between, yes, I want to send my voice and my capture card, or I want to send my voice, I want to send my music, my alerts, my Discord, my PC audio, what audio extractor for my capture for HDMI, whatever it is. You can send all of your stuff to the main mix, and then, if you want, you could have speakers hooked up to the sub mix here, and you can send just your alerts and just music to those speakers, or just Discord to those speakers, and not your microphone. So you could take, because if your microphone was sent to the speakers you had in your room or in front of you, it's going to feed back, and that's going to be a horrible experience for everybody. You don't want to hook up speakers unless you can remove something from the speaker mix, which is why a submix is very nice. The submix will allow you to hook up speakers. The thing this board lacks is it only has one aux send, which means if you need to send two microphones to two different inputs, let's say you've got a two-person stream, right? You've got two people streaming at the same time. You're a couple or your roommates, and you're doing one stream together, and you've got both of your microphones hooked up to the soundboard, and you each are using Discord separately. You would need to send the audio to two separate sound cards. Now, you could get away with this by using the FX send as a separate, but you'd again sacrifice the FX channel and the effects built into the board for this, which you may not want to do. Then you'd want to go up to the last board on the list here, and there is other boards bigger than this. All the big boards bigger than this are going to include the features of this board. I really like this board. This is my board. I've had the X2222 as well, which is the board above this one, which gives you, an extra microphone input and a couple of extra controls on like aux return. I don't think it's all that necessary. I think this is the sweet spot for everything you'd need as a streamer, as a content creator. It gives you all the features I talked about on the other board. You've got 6 microphone inputs with compression, which is fantastic. Mine is filled up. You've got 2 aux sends so that you can send one mic to one sound card and a second mic to a second sound card, or both. You could crisscross. You could send them however you want. And it's got the effects send. And it's got really good effects on this board. I use it for my live music streams and production. We've got faders again, and we've got a submix on this board. And you've got a fader for the mon send. So if you need to quickly mute your Discord output, you can just pull this red fader down and you're good to go. You've got an FX chain, which can be sent to the main mix, the submix, the monitor. It is actually probably... That's one of my favorite features of this board, is that I can very easily send the effects to the monitor if I want to mess with people in Discord or something and have my voice modulated or a reverb for whatever reason. You could send it to the monitor. It's got the submix, it's got the EQ, it's got a good FX suite, and it's got the 4 stereo inputs with the line adjustment for a decibel boost. You've got a beautiful set of outputs for this as well. You've got the sub output, you've got the main mix output can be sent to the headphones. You can route them to different devices through analog. This is a great board. This is my favorite board. If you can't find this one in stock anywhere, the X222, the X2222, it's 4 2s, will be a fantastic option as well. I highly recommend either one of those boards. Get whatever one has the better price on it. The X222222 is a little bit more expensive typically from what I've seen, but sometimes it's actually cheaper. But I also want to show you this one. This one has been recommended a bunch of times by people, and big no from me. As you can see, I purchased this board to test it out, and I returned it pretty instantly. It has the compression for these is worthless. The compressor on this does not do any justice. It's basically just a limiter. If you read the manual, you will see that. The stereo inputs, unfortunately, are badly tied together. The big problem with this board is that if you plug into the line in here, thinking it's a stereo input, because as you can see, there's only 3 stereo inputs, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then 11, 12's got a little headphone input. This is also the USB return sound from the computer, which you would think would be great to have a sound card built right in. But the problem is you may want to plug in, I don't know, plug in a audio extractor here so you can get audio from your console or from another device. Three inputs here is really not a lot, and it maybe you have a 2 computer setup, and you want the soundboard to kind of interact between both the computers. If you plug the USB into the stream computer, it's kind of pointless if you've only got that one channel coming back from the stream computer. Sure, you can use it for alerts or whatever, but now you're highly limited by these other inputs. And the fact that the compressor does not work the way that a normal compressor would just is not worth it. And as you can see, $329. It's not a cheap board. So the biggest problem is compression. It doesn't work like a compressor. If you read the manual, it's very clear that it doesn't work like a compressor. It works like a limiter, which is not what you want. You want actual compression. And this line 12 audio, if you plug something in here, you can't control it with the fader. No matter what you set this fader output to, the USB blend knob, see how it says inputs and then USB 1, 2? If you plug something in here, this line in, this is the USB 1, 2. This is the same thing. So you can either hear the inputs on the board or hear the USB. You can like solo out the USB and not hear the board at all. But no matter where this knob is set, you're still going to hear this input if you plug something into it. It's nuts. You can't get rid of it. No matter what you do with this fader, you can't get rid of it. It kind of makes this channel entirely pointless. So it doesn't have 4 stereo inputs. You lose the USB if you plug this in, so you actually lose an input trying to use a physical input. It's just nuts. This is not a board. This is a good board if you're not a streamer. If you're not a streamer, if you're a band, if you're doing music, sure, great board. If you need something that you could take out with you and you know it's going to be built well, and then okay. If you're a musician and not a streamer, but if you're a live streamer and your focus is live streaming content, gaming, and being able to mix alerts, Discord, game sound, music, there's 4 right there. I haven't even gotten to the audio extractor for your consoles yet. So, yeah, if they only give you 3, and then the 4th one is like something you really don't have good control over, forget it. And you're not getting a compressor. Over $300 for a bad compressor. No thanks. I don't want to spend $300+ on a board that doesn't have good compression. So do yourself a favor. Just get the Behringer boards. The Behringer boards are fantastic, but let me talk about their weakness, okay? The major weakness with these boards is that they have pretty cheap capacitors thrown in. Unfortunately, Behringer's capacitors, they're not really rated for just sitting in a hot room or a hot environment without any help. Okay, if you have a Behringer soundboard, they really expect you to have this in a rack, maybe with some fans and some cooling going on for your other equipment, some airflow. Having these boards just sit and be on in your room without any airflow in a hot room, it's going to take its toll on the capacitors on these boards. The easy fix for this is to get a USB fan, a small USB fan, slap it on the side of the board. There's some little fins on the side of the board, and get some airflow going through so that you can cool the capacitors inside. Because some of those smaller capacitors on the power supply are right next to some very big hot capacitors. You'll notice if you stick your hand underneath the board, you can feel how hot it is. If the board is very hot, get a fan on there as soon as possible. Otherwise, those little capacitors are going to go, and you're not going to be able to use this thing for more than a couple of years. You don't want to buy a new board every couple of years. This thing can last 10 years if you keep it cool properly. Those capacitors don't have to go bad right away. It is repairable, but it's not easy to take these things apart and fix that stuff. So I highly recommend I've lost 2 soundboards to heat because I didn't realize what was going on until I went through 2 of them. So please do yourself a favor and just get some easy passive cooling. It's a $10 to $12 USB fan will save you hundreds of dollars. Okay? I hope this helps. I'm going to be doing more videos on soundboards, how to set them up. The next video is going to be on the cables and adapters and stuff everyone should buy. I will actually link to that if you're interested in just beefing out your setup with all the proper equipment. I will put a link in this video to the article I have on my website, and I will put all the boards linked below. They will be affiliate links if you want to use those to support what I do on this channel. You can use those. And I hope if you guys have any questions, you leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer everybody. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe.